Hey babe, what's wrong?
I'm trying to figure out what the doctor said at the doctor visit today, and I can't for the life of me figure out what it was.
Then you should have taken one of these handy doctor visit forms with you and you could have wrote all the information down. Stick around to figure out how we keep all the doctor's visits straight and all the information.
We are a family of 5 living on a ranch in Texas.
On our channel, we will cover a variety of topics. These are solely based on our experience and opinions, and we do not hold any degrees in childhood development or education.
Hi, welcome back to Parenting on the Ranch. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Curtis.
So as you know, we've had a lot of kids if you've been following our channel, and we have a lot of doctor's visits.
A lot.
And it kind of gets crazy and chaotic, especially after 23 kids, keeping all the information straight from kid to kid. So this is what we do. So in foster care, when we first started our journey, they had their own forms from DFPS or the Department of Family and Protective Services for us to log every doctor's appointment, every dentist, everything that we took them to. The ER, every time they got sick, we had to log all that information. So I kind of compiled our own form since we're not in that
requirement.
Since we're not required to do it anymore. I mean, it came in super handy, especially while in foster care. We wrote it all down. It's, put it in a binder, and it's easy right there, simple. And you can pass that along from person to person to person, wherever the child went. So we kind of made our own form because it is so handy, taking from what they need, but kind of omitting what we really don't need anymore. So our form covers, I think, everything
pretty much
that you can need. So in our family, especially with our kids, we've had a lot of different things that we've had to keep track of over the years. So obviously we have their regular pediatrician. We've had a audiologist for hearing. We've had a neurologist that handles the fetal alcohol syndrome and those kind of things. Geneticist. Oh gosh, there's so many. Dentists, because their insurance requires that Gage goes every 3 months to the dentist, and Raven and Cassie go every 6 months, and we need caps on our teeth, all those things. So and then we have a specialist that we have to go to him. And I get overwhelmed after having so many kids. I get overwhelmed with the information. So I'm like, you sit down and they come in and they bombard you with all these questions. I'm like, wait, which kid was that? Which kid had that? Wait a minute. They look at me like I'm nuts because some of the people that I see don't really know that we've had all these kids and all these different factors, and I'm like, which kid is that? It even boils down to their birthday sometimes. Like, wait a minute, I know the year, just give me a second. So,
and then on top of that, if I take one of the kids to the doctor one time or something like that, then it's like I get home and Jess asks me, well, what did the doctor say? Or how much did they weigh this time? Or, something like that. It's easy for me to say, it's right here. There you go. I don't have to remember it. I have to pay attention to what I'm doing so I can make the notes on there. But it's still right there, and we can always go back to it later if we have to.
Well, you can even ask the nurse or the doctor themselves if they would write clearly, because there is a note section on the back for just any kind of random things they might throw out. Next time you come in 6 weeks, we might do this. Because they're going to ask you, they're going to rely on you to remember that. So, I mean, it is handy. It seems really, really strange. But after doing it for so long, I have a folder in my purse, or I think we have some in the car. So every time we go to a new place, we just take in a form. Because we had a lot of instances where the regular pediatrician sent us to the geneticist, and then we had to go back to the pediatrician. Well, obviously they're in two separate basically lanes. So, this one may not tell the other one what exactly is going on. So if I write a note and I'm responsible for just their information, then I can contain it. But too, a lot of it boils down to, I have 3 kids most of the time when I go to the doctor. Or if you take, there's 3 kids, there's a lot, trying to corral them, trying to keep them busy to where I can hear. And then I have to remember, it's a lot sometimes, especially if you have really littles, toddlers, or, just a lot of kids. It takes a lot to remember it all in specifics, and that's what I want to know.
And then on top of that, if you want to go back later on and see, well, when did Raven have her last ear tube surgery, or when did she go to the ENT the last time, or when did we go to the ER? Was it Thursday or was it Friday? The ease of just looking at the binder that we put these in and saying, okay, well, they went on this date, this is what their temperature was, and this is what their complaint was, and this is what the doctor said. Just going into to their regular PCP and saying, this is what the ER doctor said. They can get it more or less, firsthand, rather than me telling her and then her telling the doctor, and then, it gets lost in translation sometimes.
We'll kind of go over the form, and we'll, I guess, scroll a picture here for you to see a little bit better. So on this form, the very first thing we write down is the date. It's very key, especially when it goes into their medication, like what day did they go to the doctor. So you have, obviously, the examination date, their name, their birth date, and how old they were at that appointment. So there's a checklist. It says reason for a visit. So you have your regular medical checkup. Our kids have Medicaid, so they have to go at these intervals. I don't know if it's private insurance requires it the same. So they go.
Well, it's not necessarily that the insurance is requiring it. This is what the doctors say they should. The
doctors require it because of their shots. And so if you give your kids shots, this would be the intervals. So you go between the day of birth and the day they're released from the hospital and 5 days. So then they go at 2 weeks, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12, 15 months, 18 months, 24 months, 30, 36, and then you're finally at yearly, thank goodness. So the next one is regular dental checkups. Again, most dentists recommend that they go every 6 months, but if they're under the age of, I believe, 5, they go every 3 months. So then you also have vision. That's a big one for me, because your eyes change so frequently, and I don't want to, say, oh, well, I think they needed glasses last night, and forget to actually get the glasses. And then we have hearing checks. There's also a space which comes in really handy, especially for us, because when our kids get sick, everybody gets sick. So it says it says illness, injury, or accident, and any other follow-up visits. So you have a place to write, what happened, where it was, all the information that you need. Especially in foster care, that was a big one. We had to be so detailed that spot sometimes wasn't big enough. And then there's also a big one that is on here. It's referral to a specialist. And what I normally don't remember is why they're actually referred to a specialist. I remember, I have this card, so it's, this specific geneticist or this specific doctor, but it's like, when I show up, the first thing they ask me is, well, why were you referred to us? I have no idea. So I can actually bring this form and, this is what happened, and this is why we're here.
Yeah, and a lot of times the doctors, they really won't even say, this person is being referred to you. They won't call them and say this person is being referred to you for this such a reason. It's just this is I'm sending you a referral for this person, and this is their date of birth, and
it's more for insurance, because when they go to the specialty dentist, I have to actually change their provider on their insurance before I can even call and make the appointment. So I think that's more what it is. But on here, the vital statistics, that comes in really handy because, especially like Cassie having the flu, knowing what her fever was and being able to track it. Vitals is a big thing. I really like to know like their weight and their height, how rapidly they're growing. You can also figure out growth chart wise with their height and their weight if they're proportionally growing. Also, if they're just maintaining that weight, so how often they go through a growth spurt. There's a vision section where they can actually write what the vision was. Also, if they recommend glasses, whoever you go to, if they recommend glasses, if your child refuses, things like that. Also, there is the grid of a hearing test. If it was done, if it took too many prompts, that's a big one that Raven had way long ago when she was little, when she was like 2.5. It took a lot of prompts, so they qualified her as having a hearing problem, but then they also wrote that it took too many prompts to actually get that result. So
it's questionable whether she actually had hearing loss or not.
So it just meant that we had to do more evaluations for her. So my major thing that I handle pretty well, all of it, is the medication. There is on the bottom of this form medication. It also has an area that says new, changed, or DC'd, which means discontinued. I want to know that because all their past medications could have an effect on their growth or could have side effects after it's been discontinued. So that way I can say, well, you discontinued it on, and be able to pull that number out of thin air, the date.
Or at least out of paper.
Yeah, out of paper. But on the back, another big one is their vaccines. Every time we vaccinate our kids, I think it's a good thing. But anyways, we won't get to that on this video. But we vaccinate our kids. So it on the back it has an area for them to circle which medication or which vaccines, thank you, that they got that day. Every time that our kids get shots at their checkups, I ask for a new shot record or at least an updated list. I compare this with what they actually put in the what is it? There's like a I forget what it is. There is a statewide system that they put the medication or the vaccines that they got into, and I want that. I want it actually printed out from their system as well as on my paper. And there's a section for procedures and tests. That's a big one for us because back in foster care, we all had to have TB tests. Some of the kids that we had to actually have the x-rays because they were positive on TB or they were a carrier or something. So it just gives you an area to write down, when Cassidy was sick. Well, they checked her for strep throat. They checked her for the flu B, all these things. So that way I don't lose it, and that way if she gets sick afterwards, like I know about when she contracted that. So a big area too is the follow-ups. You have no follow-ups, the next well child check just on their birthday, and then actually when and why they need to come back. We do a lot of come back in 6 weeks so we can check that their medication is working correctly and effectively for them. So I want to make note that that's why. The second to last section on here is, I think, crucial to, at least to me, because it has an area of who was the provider, who actually did all these things. So you have a box to check for primary provider, self-explanatory, and ER. But then when we go to the emergency room, I want to know the doctor's name because I might have a question later, or I might have a billing issue, or I might need to go back and get a school note because I forgot because I was trying to hurry my kid out the door, whatever it is. So I can make sure, or when there is a school issue that the classroom can't come to school because everybody is sick, I can say my kid was checked on this day at this hospital by this doctor, and have basically the proof in the pudding that my kid has gone to the doctor. We've had a couple of those instances. The last section on this form is just basically notes. If you think it's vital for you to remember, write it down. Because in both of our career histories, if it's not written down, it never happened. So that section is big. Sometimes I have to use an extra form just to scribble on, or paper towel, whatever you got. Just put them together. So we have some copies that we'll scroll to, just so you kind of see how we fill it out, how we use the sections. Like when Cassidy had her, when she had her air tube surgery, I wrote it all down. How much she weighed, size, all those things. And when her follow-up was. Then I took it with me when she had to go to the ER, when she had that 103 fever, like, this is what we just walked through. Because sometimes I don't always remember that it's called BMT or anoidectomy, whatever it is. So then I'm able to show the ER doctor, this is what we got, and then he tells me what medications to use and change. I just think that it's effective. So you might say, what do I do with this form when we're done with the doctor's appointment? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, where do you put it? So, I didn't bring it out today, but what I do with the form is basically simplify it. Each of my kids have a Word document on my computer that starts at the beginning of the year, and I just type the entire sheet into Word. Date, what we went for, everything. I just type it all in. That way I basically have a rolling thing. So I type it into Word, and then I file the actual doctor form into the binder. So at the end of every month, I can take those out and file it into my filing cabinet. Or I could put it directly into my filing cabinet. The thing that I take with me is that basic Word document printed out in my folder, and I have their entire history back to when Gage was 5 months old, or Cassidy and Raven when they were 18 months and 2 years old. It's all in that binder. As long as I print it back, front and back, it doesn't take up that much room. And I don't print it gigantic print. I mean, you can shrink it down as the list gets a little longer. And then you can just go through there and take out each year section if you want to after that.
Basically what this is really for is to make sure that you get organized with their kids, with how they go to the doctors, what was said, so it's easier for you to go back and see, okay, well, this is when it happened, this is what happened, this is what we did to fix it. Organization with us is a major key, especially with 3 kids. It's hard to keep things straight sometimes, and having some place where you can just sit down and look at the book and say, this is what it was, it makes it a whole lot easier. And
especially with us, because the doctors are so far away, we genuinely, which word am I looking for? Generally, we schedule both or all 3 kids for the same day, the same appointment. So I'm not only taking one kid to the doctor, I'm taking all 3. I have to collect that data in my brain and hold it all in for the sometimes hour and a half it takes us to get home, just so I have somewhere to write it down. If I didn't have this form, I might mix and match the information and then tell you the wrong thing, and then we're both confused, and then we have to find, it just, for us, it just keeps everybody's information straight, because normally if one of them goes to the audiologist, both of them are going, or to the dentist, all 3 are going. So hour later, I'm like, okay, which kid am I supposed to take to the special orthodontist, or which one needed braces, or whatever it was. So it goes all back to your mental plate. It just tries to keep those things organized to where you have something to actually show. You know, I can just give you the form, like you said, or I can just give that doctor the form. It just keeps it all organized and kind of mainstreams the process of getting the information to every doctor, because it's a lot. So,
and we will have a copy of this form in the description below that you can download it. We'll have it in the PDF form, and if possible, we'll have it in a Word document form as well. So you can download it, print it off if you like what we have. You can download the Word document and open it up on your computer and change it. If you think of something else or want to take something out, you're welcome to change it. But like I said, there will be a link in the description below to the forms that you can download. So next week we're going to be talking about how we track the prescriptions that we get from these doctor visits.
I should be a pharmacist by now.
So make sure you subscribe to the channel, as well as click on the bell icon so you don't miss anything. In the meantime, check out these 2 videos over here. And until we see you then, happy parenting.